yourself at any time if you have a question, because, this will just be casual and you're welcome to stop me at any time. So again, my name is Beth Bruce and I'm a literacy coach for the district. I've been out of the classroom for about 3 years, supporting teachers with reading and writing. And so you are here tonight because you are possibly have a reluctant writer, or you just want to know how to best support your kiddo with writing. And Erin, what grade is your child in, if you don't mind?
My son Reed is in second. He's at
Okay, great.
Stadium,
Okay.
and he's a fabulous reader, but he does not enjoy writing.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to find some tips and tricks. Right now they're doing nonfiction, and he seems to like that more.
Okay.
Even though he has a great imagination, we just can't transfer that to the paper.
Got it. Okay. Well, thank you for coming. So I'm just hopefully I can give you guys some good practical tips as a parent and a teacher and as a literacy coach. So the first thing that you want to think of is like setting up a space for your child at home. And this does not have to be anything fancy. It could just be like this is the pillow on the floor, right? And you have a clipboard, but just having a space carved out is important. And they will need a couple things, but nothing fancy. Some paper with lines just to help them ground their letters, like something like this. And you can make paper at home on the computer. You can print it off, or you can just draw lines. But it's important that they do have somewhere, to write their letters. When I'm talking about kindergarten, I would say like 3 lines right now would probably be good, maybe 5, 3 to 5. Of course, you can make more. If they want to write more, you can write more. But you don't really have to worry so much about the lines, but just to make sure they have paper to write on. And our kids in Lake Orion are used to writing on just one side of the paper, on a single side, and that might not sound very environmentally friendly. But that is just because they end up revising it and cutting it and adding on. So if they write on both sides, then they're going to be cutting off some of their writing. Does that make sense? Also, a pen, like maybe, and these are my favorite kind of pens. These are called those flare tip pens. And the reason why I like for them to write with a pen as opposed to a pencil, one, it's easier on their hands. It's not as tiring. It flows nicely. And also, if they write with a pencil, they have a tendency to spend a lot of time erasing instead of writing. So I would prefer them to just write. And if they make a mistake, they just cross it off and keep going. Because a lot of our perfectionist kiddos, they want everything to be perfect and they just erase and erase and erase and spend more time doing that than just writing. So if they have a pen, they can't do that, right? And plus, a lot of times they think it's fun that they have like a fancy pen to write with. So the other thing that they're going to need is a writing partner. And that could be you, or it could be a sibling or a family member, maybe even somebody on FaceTime or Zoom, just to talk with them about their writing. And I don't want you to think that you have to give them a writing prompt such as like, why don't you write about your favorite holiday? Instead, your job will be really to help them like mine their own lives for the type of writing that they want to create. So you might want to think about like the specific kind of writing that follows the genre that they're working on in school. So if they're working on how-tos, then they can continue creating how-tos at home. Or if they're working on, oh, sorry, I'm gonna need to admit somebody. Said I had somebody waiting, but I don't, okay. Or if they're working on realistic fiction, then making up stories with made up characters. Or if the teacher's telling them to just write every day, then your job could be just to help them find ideas for their writing. Okay. Another thing that's really helpful is to help them to think about the kind of writing that they want to write. You might want to say something like, do you want to make up a story about the time that you went to the zoo? Or do you want to write an information book that teaches about the zoo? Or, I remember that you weren't happy the one time we went to the zoo, you weren't happy about the bear that was in that really small enclosure. Maybe we can write a letter to the zoo to help make a change about that bear's enclosure, right? So giving them a choice and letting them know it's up to them, if that really helps their energy and their enthusiasm by giving them that choice. And then always asking your child questions about their writing, asking them specific questions like, well, how did that happen? Well, how did that make you feel? Can you tell me more about that? What are some other words that you could use to describe that? Those are great questions to support them in adding more details and getting more on the page, because what the goal is we want to increase their stamina. And sometimes we teach kids in school to eventually start to ask themselves those questions to add on, but sometimes they struggle with that. And so they just need a partner or somebody to help them with that. Okay. The reason why I have publish on this page is because it can be really motivating if you're somehow, and I don't mean like publishing it in like a famous magazine or in a book, but just literally putting it on the refrigerator could be a mode of publishing their writing, encouraging them to write for somebody else, putting it in an envelope and sending it to grandma or grandpa, right, for them to read is really motivating. And being a supportive partner also means I know we are all, as parents, we want to help our kids, but when they ask us, how do you spell a word? It can be really hard, right? To not say, oh, it's spelled like this, but that's not really helping them or being supportive. The best thing to do would be to say, well, let's use our strategies. What sounds do you hear? And have them stretch out that word. Sometimes we tell kids, like, pretend like you have a rubber band and stretch it out and listen for those sounds. And whatever sounds they hear is what they should write down. Okay, we call that invented spelling. They're making approximations. That's part of the process, because when you tell them how to spell a word, they're constantly going to be looking to you as a crutch. And when you're not there, they're not going to want to write because they're too afraid they're going to get it wrong, right? So we want them to understand that whatever letters they write down from those sounds they hear is perfectly fine. And I'll show you later on what's appropriate on the developmental trajectory and what it looks like. I have a little tip that has helped in the past with kiddos that are perfectionists and really want to get the word right. I tell them to put what's called a magic line, and they just write a little line on the paper. And that's like a placeholder for, I know something goes there, but I'm not really sure what it is. And then just to keep on going. They have a whole page of magic lines and it's not working, but, but just occasionally a little line like, I'm so frustrated, I know something goes there. And also suggest that they use their resources. So like, for example, if the teacher sent home an alphabet chart, or if they have a word wall, refer them, say, look at your alphabet chart, that letter's on there, and you can support them with that. Like, oh, remember it starts with that apple, that picture of the apple, because eventually we want them to independently be using those resources on their own too. Just like we do in the classroom. Do you have any questions? I know that was a lot. Is anything that stands out?
Not so far, but those are good suggestions.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Because I do have a perfectionist.
A lot of times that happens, and I've had a lot of them in my classroom. Sometimes even another little tip that's helped is to give them a goal. Like I've put stars at the bottom of the page and like as a goal for them to get to the star, right all the way to the star today. Let's see if we can get there. And sometimes just having that end goal will really helps them.
That sounds great. That's a great idea.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that was all very helpful too.
Great.
Since it's kind of at that point where it's more so just like staying on the line, using your lowercase letters, but like you said, he has a chart that his teacher gave him with like the upper and lowercase letters. So I'll often refer to that and say,
perfect.
Make sure you're using your lowercase. If you aren't sure, use your chart. So
yeah, and that's
to hear like I'm doing the,
yeah, that's great. Use your alphabet chart. Yeah, because that is tricky for them. They really get stuck in writing in those uppercase letters. And sometimes they just can't visually remember what that lowercase letter looks like. So having that chart right next to them will
Mhm.
really help for sure. So this is just a little video of, her name is Amanda Hartman, and she is a staff developer for the Teachers College Reading and Writing Project out of Columbia. And this is actually the curriculum that we use in Lake Orion. So I wanted to just show you Amanda's kind of modeling for you how you could be a good partner for your child and helping them come up with and develop their story. This is a younger student, so I apologize, Erin, it's not a second grader, but you can kind of imagine like how she's using the language. She's helping them tell the story, but not giving her the ideas. So you can
with their writing. So I'm going to share my screen with that video
Can you
now
hear?
and show it to you.
Okay, so you just taught me how in your house you clean up after dinner. Let me see if I've got it right. First, you clear the table and clean it. Is that true? Like you take the plates, the cups, the fork, spoons.
Sorry, I
everything.
hear her, but I don't see her. Is
Okay.
that right?
Okay, good. And I bet you have to be careful not
can't
to
see her.
I don't see her, but I hear her.
Am I right? You have to be careful not to drop them. Okay.
Because
Right.
the glass will break.
And you don't want glass to break
Break.
because that's
And-
dangerous.
And if you are not wearing shoes, you're gonna get hurt.
So when you clear the table, do you wear your shoes?
Yes.
Good idea. Such a good tip. Okay. Then you clean the floor with, what do you clean the floor with?
A breath.
Oh, like with the broom? Okay. You clean it with the broom. Anything I need to be careful about?
About hurting it in your face because the lungs stick.
Good point. Be careful of the stick not to hit it in your
Face.
face. Okay, great. Then I wash the dishes. Anything I need to know about washing dishes?
Yes.
What do I need to
The
know?
glass.
What about the glass?
If the people are gonna get hurt,
Oh, so I have to be careful with it, not to break it?
and if it breaks, you need to wipe it with a broom.
Okay. Oh gosh. Okay. Then after I wash, then what do I do? Oh, I dry. I dry the dishes
Dry.
with what do
A
I?
paper.
Oh, right. Like a towel?
Okay, yeah, I apologize. I'm not sure why you couldn't see that. That's strange. But hopefully you were able to kind of just hear how Amanda was speaking to the student and really just helping her with that oral language of telling the story. A lot of times our kiddos just have a really hard time orally telling stories, right? And in the beginning of kindergarten, we do a lot of work with we have them tell a story and then we retell the story. And by touching our fingers like that, that's kind of imitating how we want them to write on the page. Oh, so first you did this. Oh yeah. And then second you did that. And then ideally we want them to be writing those steps on each page, right? Do you see my picture that says role model? Okay. Oh, you don't see it? Erin sees it?
I see it.
Okay.
Erin.
Sorry, James.
Okay.
Maybe hang on. Oh, no, oh, okay.
You're good?
I see it. I'm so
Okay, good.
sorry.
That's
It was
okay.
it was my problem on my end.
Well,
I
that's
see
good.
it now. Yay.
That's okay. Okay, good. So the reason why I have role model down is because it's important for your child to see you as a writer too. And just sometimes pointing out times when you use writing to communicate with others, discussing like authentic writing in the community, such as like an article or letters in the newspaper or advertisements, and just discuss the purpose of writing and the target audience. So maybe like if your child's writing, you could write. You could schedule a day of the week where you turn off the TV and just share your writing together. Okay, read. And I know, Erin, you said that you do have a vivacious reader who's not a super strong writer.
Yeah,
eventually-
he loves reading.
Yeah, eventually those two, they do come together because the best way to improve your writing is by reading. And if your child reads a lot of books, he will become a better writer. Research has shown that because reading exposes them to like general vocabulary, to word study, to that content specific vocabulary. That's really important. And they also see like a variety of authors' techniques, right? And then they can use in their own writing. So a lot of times in school, the teachers will say, let's use this author as a mentor. And what could we do that this author is doing? What could we emulate? What could we copy? Something cool. When I taught first grade, we did a lot of work with like my kids loved Mo Willems. And so sometimes we would take Mo Willems books and they would do the dialogue, the speech bubbles, because that's super fun. Especially the boys really got into doing those comics and the speech bubbles. So adding that is a great idea. So also something they could keep a journal, and for whatever reason, little ones love it if you give them like a little teeny topic, like a little notebook. They think that's so cool. That's something that they can keep with them and write whenever they have an idea. And it's just really good practice for them, like to vent their feelings. They could write about things that happen at home or at school when we get back there eventually, right? And they could write about what they saw, what they heard. If they go somewhere on a trip, they could write about their experiences, just anything that sparks their interest. And encouraging them to write about their personal feelings is really, really important. Positives and negatives, disappointments too, right? And if your child wants you to read their journal, right, then you could share your ideas and give them positive feedback about their writing. So just something that they keep with them. When I was teaching, I told the kids it was called their tiny topic notebooks, and they were going to catch ideas and put them in their notebook when they came up with an idea. So it could be an idea collector too, right? But providing authentic writing opportunities, that is really, really important for kids. Having them write thank you notes for gifts, right? Mom say, yeah. Writing out party invitations when we can have parties again, right? Having them write those out, having them make the grocery list. And I don't apologize if you can't read it, but having them help you with it too. You can share the pen with them, right? And they could write some of the grocery list, the sounds that they hear. But finding a pen pal, giving them that opportunity for real writing, helping them see that connection between writing and the real world, that really will increase their interest in writing. Okay, so you might be wondering, like, how much should my child be writing and what is appropriate, right? What are the standards? Well, I'm going to talk to you about the expectations for the end of the year, okay? End of the year kindergarten teachers are thrilled for 3 pages of 1 to 3 sentences on each page. And I'm not talking about a notebook page. I'm talking about the type of paper that I showed you. They'd be thrilled with 3 pages of 1 to 3 sentences per day. So I'm saying, when I say per day, I'm saying in about an hour. Okay, not 3 notebook pages, remember, but 3 pages of their paper choice. First graders, I would say about 2 to 3 pages, maybe 12 to 15 sentences per day. And then second graders, I would say 2 to 5 pages per day. And the reason why I didn't really, the standard doesn't go up so much is because they're spending a lot more time thinking and planning and editing and revising. So they're not going to have quite as much because they really have to go back a lot and do a lot more of that revision work because that's what's expected of them in second grade. So we're really hoping that second graders writing by the end of the day does look like an entire notebook of writing filled up. And they might not necessarily have a picture on every page, where a kindergartner and a first grader, we would like to see a picture on every page because the picture really drives their story and helps them remember it. And the next day when they go to sit down, sometimes they have no idea what they wrote about yesterday. So we're like, look at your picture. That'll help remind you, I have this ring light and my ring light just shut off. So all of a sudden I went dark. It's my beauty light, right? To help me look younger. Haha. Okay, so here's what I was telling you about. This is like the development of writing. So I'm sure you can probably kind of see where your kiddo is sitting on this continuum. And of course, in the beginning of kindergarten, it's all pictures. And that's what we expect to see. That's how they start writing. They draw pictures of, that's what we teach them to do. And then eventually they start approximating words. And then they start those random letter strings that really don't make any sense, but they know, they can tell you what it says, right? And then we have some random and initial sounds mixed in. So by the end of kindergarten, we would love to start seeing some vowels. And I'm saying some. But the vowels are, of course, the hardest thing for them to write and to hear. We usually get the beginning and the ending sounds. And then I would say by first grade, we would like to just see all syllables represented. We start to teach them that all syllables have a vowel, right? And then, of course, we start to see these multiple sentences and then many words with the correct spelling, but that might not really come till like the end of second grade. And of course, like I said, as they start learning more about the phonics and they start reading more, then we start to see this continuum develop. Did you have a question, Daniel?
I was just going to say that's actually really comforting to hear, because that's one thing that Daniel's been really struggling with is the vowel sounds. And, you know, his teacher talked today about how there's always a vowel in the middle of the word.
Yes.
And, you know, and I think he's still understanding like what a vowel is.
Sure. Yeah. And it'll come. I wouldn't.
Like in the air or I instead of E.
Right.
So that's comforting to know that that's a skill that might just take a little bit longer.
Yeah, and some kids it just clicks sooner than others, and I don't think he's going to be in 5th grade with not having vowel sounds represented in his words. So
Yeah.
it'll come. And especially, you know, during this time when, you know, we've been learning in this virtual world, so he'll get there.
Okay.
So this just kind of shows you, you know, how important it is for kids to be labeling their pictures. So kindergarten teachers and first grade teachers really tell the kids, we do lots of lessons on labeling your pictures. So if they draw something at home, encourage them to just label every little thing in their picture. So you can kind of see this example. And then eventually what we teach them to do is pull this, that's how I like to describe it. Pull those labels down into sentences on those lines. Use those snap words and those sight words that you know. There we go. All right. So again, we teach them how they pull those labels into make sentences. Okay. So if that's something, I'm sure Daniel is already writing on the lines, but for anybody that's listening to this later, that's something that you can, as a writing partner, you can help your child to do that work. Okay. So I just wanted to show you, this is a chart that we may use with our kids in school and supporting them with narrative writing. And this just gives you some tips on some things that you can help them with. So for example, if they're writing a narrative story and they have characters in their story, you can say things like, can you make your character move? Can you picture how your character is moving? We tell them to make a movie in their mind of what's happening and then write about it. So how was your character walking slowly? Was your character running? Can you make them talk? Can you give them some dialogue? Right? Think about, how do we bring the story to life? How can we tell it in teeny tiny steps? Instead of Mike got on the bus, Mike ran to the bus so fast that he almost fell. Right? So we're just telling little teeny tiny steps of what happened. He moved his foot back, he pulled his leg back, he kicked the ball into the net, right? So and just making our characters feel and think, that really helps make a stronger narrative story. And then for nonfiction, there's a lot of things that we teach, include, we encourage them to create a nonfiction piece that's similar to a nonfiction textbook, right? Using those nonfiction features, making diagrams, labels. Can they pop out some bold words. And that's probably, boys really love, typically tend to love making these nonfiction texts, right? That's what we tend to see. Like, can you tell me how sharp, make a comparison. How sharp were those shark's teeth? The shark's teeth was as sharp as a knife. Using lots of size and shapes and color words is really important. So this chart just kind of helps give you an idea of some things that they can do to make a stronger nonfiction piece as well. Okay, so on the end here, I've included a chart. This says, when you're done, you've just begun, because when our students say to us, I'm done, we say, no, you've just begun. You can add to your pictures. You can add to your words. You can reread it. You can meet with a partner. You can start a new piece. So we tell them they're never done, right? And they could go back and do all of these things to their story. It's so funny in kindergarten, because the kindergartners will often have a folder filled with like 20 to 30 pages with like one sentence that they think that they're done. And so when we finally sit down with them and we realize that we're like, oh boy, no, we need to go back and do some more work on these pages. And then off you go is what we tell the teachers, your child's teacher is telling your student every day after they're done with their lesson. Off you go, off to do this work as a writer. So they hear that every day at the end of a mini lesson. So is there anything that, any other questions that you have? I hope that I've given you some tips and some strategies. I'm gonna stop recording here.